They built magnificent monuments, mastered revolutionary technologies, and thrived in some of Earth's most unforgiving terrains. Then suddenly, without any kind of explanation, they vanished. From the advanced cities of the Indus Valley, deserted almost overnight, to the puzzling downfall of the vast Khmer Empire, these civilizations vanished, leaving only questions and lifeless ruins in their wake. Stay with us as we're going to uncover 15 lost civilizations that history forgot. Number 15. Kush. Well, in ancient Egyptian records, Kush appears as a land rich in gold and valuable resources, exploited by Egypt for nearly 500 years between 1500 and 1000 BCE. But Kush's roots run much deeper than most people believe. Archaeological finds near Kerma, its capital, include ceramics from as early as 8000 BCE. By 2400 BCE, it had evolved into a structured agricultural civilization. In the 9th century BCE, Egyptian instability gave Kush a chance to rise. In a major reversal, Kush conquered Egypt in 750 BCE. For nearly 100 years, Kushite pharaohs ruled a vast territory even more expansive than their Egyptian counterparts. They revived pyramid building throughout Sudan, creating a legacy of monuments. Eventually, the Assyrians forced them out of Egypt, but the Kushites regrouped further south at Meroe, where they forged a distinct identity. They developed their own script, called Meroitic, which remains undeciphered, even today in 2025. That language barrier has left much of Kush's final history obscured. The kingdom ended around 300 CE, though what caused its downfall is still an unsolved mystery. Number 14. Nok culture. The Nok culture is one of West Africa's earliest known civilizations, and it flourished over 2,500 years ago in what is now Nigeria. They're most famous for their terracotta sculptures, life-sized, expressive, and strikingly detailed. The craftsmanship is on another level, with facial features so distinct they almost feel contemporary. But Nok society wasn't just about art. They mastered iron smelting centuries before it became common in Europe, producing tools, weapons, and farming equipment that gave them a serious edge. Then around 500 CE, they vanished. Their settlements, tools, and artwork were buried beneath the soil, with no written record explaining why. Was it a slow collapse caused by drought, crop failure, or disease? Maybe warfare fractured their society. Or possibly, like others before them, they were absorbed into other cultures. Whatever happened, the Nok left behind some of Africa's most valuable ancient artifacts, fragments of a society more advanced than anyone expected. And yet, their true story is still missing. A culture that carved beauty from clay, then disappeared without a word. Number 13. Mitanni Kingdom. The Mitanni Kingdom lasted from roughly 1500 to the 1200s BCE, covering parts of today's Syria and northern Iraq. You might recognize one Mitanni, and Egypt's famous Queen Nefertiti is believed to have been born a princess of Mitanni, likely married off to strengthen ties with Egypt. The Mitannians were of Indo-Aryan origin, and their beliefs revealed just how far Indian philosophy had reached in the ancient world. Concepts like karma, reincarnation, and cremation were part of their spiritual system, making the Egyptian-Mitanni connection even more compelling. Nefertiti and her husband Amenhotep IV led a brief religious upheaval in Egypt, though it's unclear how much of that was influenced by her foreign heritage. Still, Nefertiti was unusually powerful and was often shown in royal acts normally reserved for pharaohs. Much of this history remains speculative, as little has been recovered from their capital, Washakani. However, ongoing digs may eventually unearth its remains and shed more light on a kingdom that helped bridge cultures in ways we're only beginning to understand. So, what do you think about it? Number 12. The Xiongnu Empire. The Xiongnu Empire was a fierce coalition of nomadic tribes that ruled northern China from the 3rd to the 1st century BCE. Picture the Mongols, except 1,000 years earlier, charging on horseback with chariots. Scholars have debated their origins, with some once proposing they were the forebears of the Huns. What's certain is this: their raids were so relentless that the Qin emperor ordered the first defensive construction of what would become the Great Wall. Decades later, their demands and aggression forced the Han dynasty to expand and fortify it further. In 166 BCE, over 100,000 Qiannu warriors advanced to within 100 miles of the Chinese capital before being repelled. It took civil unrest, power struggles, and external pressure from rival steppe tribes to finally weaken them. Only then could China begin asserting some control. The Xiannu were the first nomadic empire of the Asian steppes, and they lasted longer than most who came after. Brutal, mobile, and feared, they set the standard for every empire that followed. Number 11. Yam. The Kingdom of Yam certainly existed as a trading partner and possible rival of Old Kingdom Egypt, yet its precise location is proven nearly as elusive as that of the mythical Atlantis. According to tomb inscriptions from Egyptian explorer Harkuf, Yam was a land rich in incense, ivory, leopard skins, and boomerangs. Harkuf described long journeys taking more than 7 months, yet most scholars believed Yam couldn't have been far, likely just a few hundred miles from the Nile. It seemed impossible that ancient traders could survive a trek across the unforgiving Sahara, and even if they could, what could possibly lie beyond it? But recent discoveries prove we underestimated them. Newly found hieroglyphs more than 700 kilometers southwest of the Nile confirm Yam's existence and place it in the highlands of modern Chad. How these expeditions cross such brutal terrain, without wheels and relying on donkeys, still puzzles historians. But Yam's role is no longer speculation. Egypt reached it and traded with it. Number 10. Aksum. Aksum has inspired many legends. Whether imagined as the land of Prester John, the fabled domain of the Queen of Sheba, or the final sanctuary of the Ark of the Covenant, Aksum has long occupied a vivid place in Western lore. But the real Aksum, rooted in ancient Ethiopia, was a powerful empire built on trade. With access to both the Nile and Red Sea networks, Aksumite commerce flourished. By the start of the Common Era, most of the Ethiopian highlands were unified under Aksumite control. Its wealth and influence reached across the Red Sea into Arabia. In the 3rd century CE, a Persian philosopher ranked Aksum as one of the world's 4 greatest powers, alongside Rome, China, and Persia. Aksum converted to Christianity not long after Rome and remained strong into the early Middle Ages, but with the Arab conquest of Red Sea ports, Aksum's dominance collapsed. Ironically, an Aksumite king had earlier sheltered Islam's first followers, unknowingly aiding the rise of the faith that later overshadowed his kingdom. Number 9. Etruscans. Long before Rome took center stage, central Italy was ruled by the Etruscans, a civilization so influential that Rome adopted their architecture, religion, and even gladiatorial games. From around 800 BCE, they thrived with organized city-states, international trade routes, and a distinctive cultural identity. Their craftsmanship was elite: metalwork, sculpture, pottery, all detailed, deliberate, and refined. Their connections stretched to Egypt and Greece, but by 300 BCE, their society had faded. Many believe Rome gradually absorbed Etruscan cities into its growing republic, but that's not the whole story. Other theories suggest environmental decline, internal power struggles, or external threats may have weakened them. While traces of their language survive, much of their writing remains untranslated, and their true story remains fractured. Their disappearance wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, methodical, almost bureaucratic. Yet their fingerprints are all over Roman law, myth, and culture. Whether conquered or simply overwritten, the Etruscans built the blueprint, and then they were forgotten by the world they helped shape. Number 8. Greco-Bactria. In recounting the legacy of Alexander the Great, we often forget the men who followed him into battle. His sudden death didn't send them back home, it ignited a fight for power. His generals battled for supremacy, dividing the empire between the survivors. Seleucus I Nicator claimed everything from the Mediterranean to modern-day Pakistan. But even the Seleucid Empire is better known than its eastern offshoot, Greco-Bactria. By the 3rd century BCE, Bactria, now part of Afghanistan and Tajikistan, grew powerful enough to break away. Ancient writers described it as a wealthy land with 1,000 cities. Surviving coinage shows an unbroken chain of Greek kings. Positioned at a cultural crossroads, Greco-Bactria blended Persian, Indian, Scythian, and nomadic influences into a distinct identity, but its riches drew hostile attention. By the 2nd century BCE, northern nomads pushed the Greeks south into India. At Ai-Khanoum, ancient Alexandria on the Oxus, excavations revealed Greek columns, Buddhist art, and Persian altars. The city was lost again during the Soviet-Afghan War in 1978. Alright, now, let's move to number 7. Minoan civilization. Before Greece emerged, the island of Crete was home to the Minoans, an advanced maritime society known for vibrant frescoes, labyrinthine palaces, and intricate plumbing. By 1600 BCE, cities like Knossos were thriving with art, ceremony, and seafaring trade. Their influence stretched across the Mediterranean, but their collapse remains one of history's sharpest turns. A powerful volcanic eruption from Thera likely triggered devastating tsunamis, crashing into Crete's coast and crippling its infrastructure. Some link this event to the Atlantis legend, a wealthy island swallowed by the sea. Yet, environmental catastrophe may not have sealed their fate alone. As Minoans struggled to rebuild, Mycenaeans from the Greek mainland seized control, likely delivering the final blow. The blend of disaster and invasion turned a vibrant culture into a fading echo. Their writings, known as Linear A, remain unread. Their cities are grand, silent. Despite their disappearance, Minoan innovations laid cultural groundwork that echoed into classical Greece. The civilization didn't vanish quietly, but the reasons for its fall still echo unanswered. Number 6. Khmer Empire. Angkor Wat is more than a monument. It's a legacy of the Khmer Empire, which ruled much of Southeast Asia for centuries with unmatched scale and ambition. Constructed in the early 1100s under King Suryavarman II, it was originally a Hindu temple, later adapted for Buddhism. Its massive towers and stone bas-reliefs reflected the empire's engineering, artistry, and deep spiritual traditions. From the 9th to 14th century, the Khmer Empire dominated the region, with an advanced irrigation system sustaining vast rice agriculture. But by the 15th century, this once mighty civilization began to crumble. The causes? Likely a combination of severe droughts, environmental stress, and political instability. Internal divisions weakened leadership, while external pressures from Thai and Cham forces accelerated the decline. Once flourishing cities were gradually overtaken by the jungle. Today, Angkor remains majestic but empty, a symbol of how even monumental empires can fall. The silence of its corridors still draws questions. What really pushed the Khmer into collapse, and what else lies hidden beneath it? Number? Weiji. The Yuezhi were the type to fight anyone, anywhere. Think of them as the Forrest Gump of ancient Eurasia. They somehow showed up at nearly every major event over centuries. Originally a confederation of nomadic tribes roaming the steppes north of China, the Yuezhi were major traders, dealing in jade, silk, and horses across vast distances. But that success put them in direct conflict with the Xiongnu, who eventually expelled them from eastern trade routes. Forced westward, the Yuezhi defeated the Greco-Bactrians, pushing them into India. Their arrival in Bactria displaced the Saka, who in turn invaded parts of the Parthian Empire. Scythian and Saka groups soon spread throughout Afghanistan. By the 1st and 2nd century CE, the Yuezhi found themselves battling those same Scythians, along with waging occasional wars in Han China and modern-day Pakistan. During this period, they transitioned into a settled agrarian society, founding the Kushan Empire. That empire lasted 3 centuries before being swallowed up by resurging powers from Persia, India, and Central Asia. The rest is in history. Number 4. Ancestral Pueblones. In the arid landscapes of the American Southwest, the ancestral Pueblones built entire cities into cliff faces, massive multi-story dwellings carved directly into the rock. From around 600 CE, they began constructing places like Mesa Verde and Chaco Canyon with intricate kivas for ceremonies, expansive room blocks, and water systems tailored to desert survival. By 1300 CE, these remarkable cities were empty. What triggered the sudden departure? Climate data points to prolonged droughts that struck hard in the late 1200s, leading to failed crops and resource scarcity. As food supplies dwindled, tension escalated, sparking social breakdown and eventually mass migration. These people didn't vanish. They relocated, evolving into today's Pueblo communities. Still, the scale of abandonment, thousands of people leaving behind centuries-old homes, is staggering. The cliff palaces now stand silent, their walls weathered by time, their halls hollowed by absence. They're not ruins of the forgotten, but reminders of a society that thrived, adapted, and endured, even after leaving their stone cities behind. Number 3. Tijuana. If forgotten kingdoms had a capital, it might be this. After the fall of the mighty Hittite Empire, Tijuana emerged as one of many city-states to fill the void in Bronze Age Anatolia, modern-day Turkey. During the 9th and 8th centuries BCE, it rose to power under a handful of rulers known only from fragmentary inscriptions. Sitting between the Phrygian and Assyrian empires, Tijuana capitalized on its location to become a vital trade hub across Anatolia. This trade brought both wealth and cultural depth. The kingdom originally used Luwian hieroglyphs, later adopting the Phoenician alphabet. Tijuana's position between East and West may have helped birth the Greek alphabet, one of history's biggest linguistic turning points. By the early 700s BCE, the Assyrians had begun sweeping westward, annexing post-Hittite states like Tijuana one by one. For decades, all we knew about Tijuana came from a few inscriptions and Assyrian texts. But in 2012, a vast city was found, revealing a power that once controlled trade through the Cilician gates. Number 2. Cahokia. Before modern cities rose across North America, Cahokia stood as a thriving metropolis near present-day St. Louis. Between 1000 and 1350 CE, it became the largest urban center north of Mesoamerica, with a population in the tens of thousands. Towering above the city was Monk's Mound, a massive earthwork larger in volume than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Cahokia boasted vast plazas, ceremonial complexes, and far-reaching trade routes that connected it to distant regions. But by 1500 CE, it was almost entirely deserted. What caused this collapse? Archaeologists suggest multiple possibilities: severe floods that wrecked agricultural fields, rapid population growth that strained local resources, disease introduced through trade, or social tensions that fractured the city from within. Despite decades of research, no single explanation fully accounts for its sudden decline. Cahokia didn't leave behind a written record, but its earthworks, burial mounds, and relics offer silent evidence of a society far more complex than once assumed. North America's first true city faded, but its footprint remains unmistakable. Number 1. Easter Island sits. Mysterious collapse. We're heading into the heart of the Pacific to Rapa Nui, aka Easter Island, home of the iconic Moai statues. You've seen the photos, massive stone figures lined up like ancient guardians, but what happened to the people who crafted them? Centuries ago, Rapa Nui was anything but desolate. It was a fertile land, home to skilled artisans who shaped these giants, some weighing over 80 tons, with remarkable precision. But greatness has its limits. Most researchers agree that the island suffered catastrophic deforestation, stripping away the very trees they needed for tools, food, and transport. As forests vanished, soil degraded, crops failed, and hunger swept through. Civil unrest likely followed, and things only worsened with European arrival. Disease, violence, and slave raids took a brutal toll. By the 18th century, Rapa Nui was barely a shadow of its past. Survivors lived in poverty, unable to fully explain the fall. The Moai remain, weathered but enduring, monuments to a people whose brilliance met a tragic, unanswered end. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.